Hey guys, and welcome back once again here to the Hillside garden. As you can tell, it's a nice sunny day outside. However, it's still January and it's in the 20s Fahrenheit, so pretty cold. So we obviously can't do things outside. So this time of year, you really need to focus on getting your houseplant game up to date and up to speed. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how you can take your own cuttings from this Ficus elastica, or the Indian rubber tree. This is the burgundy variety, but it works the same for all of the same type of plants. So you can actually increase the number of plants you have so simply, but more importantly, for free. Okay, so let me show you how you can do it for free, how simple it is, and just how you can multiply your plants indefinitely and just completely just turn your house into a jungle, if that's the kind of thing you're into, which kind of what's happening here a little bit. But anyways, here we go. Okay, so first things first, what you do need to have is obviously a rubber tree. Whether it be yours or somebody else's, that's up to you to decide. And don't get caught taking cuttings unless you have permission. Not that I would ever have done something like that. Anyways, you also need a nice pair of scissors or pruning shears of some kind to make the cuts. Optional, you're going to need a plant label. It's pretty obvious what this plant is. But I like to put the date on things when I do the cuttings, just so I can know that, hey, check this after 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so, that you should have some root forming. You don't want to, leave it in too long, or just, not long enough before you start trying to mess with the roots or something. And last but not least, for this method, I've shown you this before. This is just an old jar that had, like, I forget, some kind of chips or something in it. It was thrown away. The lid has long since rotted away, dry rotted after so many years of use. However, completing the greenhouse effect of this, just put some plastic wrap with some rubber bands or whatever you need to do to kind of seal this up to kind of keep it a complete humidity dome. And here's just basically your standard store-bought potting soil. Okay, and then to that I've added a generous scoop of perlite, all those little white stone-looking things in there, the puffed up volcanic rock. That's going to help with the aeration and keep the soil nice and loose. For the cuttings are going to be able to take better in a looser soil as opposed to a heavier potting soil or something like that. So anyways, let's get into it. Let's determine how we decide where to cut this plant. Okay, so when deciding where to cut the plant, you look right here. This is the growing tip, okay? It's nice and healthy. It's putting on new leaves. Right here, you can kind of tell this leaf was facing away from the window because it's kind of curled backwards, but also another growing tip right there. Now, you need to make sure you cut enough of the plant that it's going to root, but obviously you don't want to take too much of it because the plant that's left behind, you want that to regenerate. So that'll do two things. It'll force some laterals to kind of grow and make this more of a bushier type plant, as it's kind of getting tall for this little pot, which is fine. I don't believe the roots are overcrowded or not. This is more of a typical house plant that doesn't need a gigantic container to produce a large plant. But I do want to kind of keep this a little bit smaller and more compact. So taking the cuttings today is the goal. Obviously, increasing the number of plants I have is always the goal, and that's what we're doing as well. So let's just start with, I'm probably going to take 3 cuttings off this. Each of these, for some reason, there's like 1, 2, 3, maybe a 4th down here. Now, whether or not that's one plant that's divided into 4, or sometimes companies, when they do these, they'll take 3 or 4 cuttings and kind of throw them in a clump together, hoping that, it's going to grow into a much bigger plant, like it is here. Not so much like a bush, but, it's much more full than if you just had one singular stem growing out of a pot. It probably wouldn't sell as well, marketing-wise, and it probably wouldn't look as well either. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make some cuttings here for you guys. Now when you do cut this, you're going to see some white latexy sap kind of stuff come out. That's why it's called the rubber tree. I guess years and years and years ago they would tap these and extract the latex from it and turn it into rubber. But that's neither here nor there. But just so you know, to be prepared, that if you need to put something like a towel or something underneath this, that don't expect to do this on something that you don't want to get the residue on. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say. So anyways, here we go. So there's a growing tip. We got a leaf here. There's a leaf right here and here. Zoom out a little bit, and right here. Okay, so what you need to do is make sure you cut back enough that it's going to be able to produce roots. Okay, You also don't want to cut too far back because the size of your container may be limiting. And also a cutting that is super big with no roots attached to it at all, because you're severing it from the mother plant, it's going to have to work twice, 3 times as hard just to survive. So it's going to have some serious setbacks on it that way. So the cutting shouldn't be too small and it shouldn't be too big. So if I were to try to cut in like right here, I would say this right here would be too small of a cut, because there's not enough really vigor in just that little node right there to produce a healthy plant. So I'm going to kind of go back to about here, and I think right here, cutting above this node, which you can see the little notch right here, that's the leaf node. And this right here, nice strong growth. I'm actually going to take it back to right here, nice flush cut across the plant, like that. And zoom in right there, see that milky sap kind of coming out of the plant right there. That is natural. That's what's going to happen. It'll callus over in no time at all. And look at how much of this sap is oozing out of this right here. Okay, so definitely make sure you don't do this somewhere you're going to make a big mess. So I'll do that. I'll take a couple more cuttings and I'll show you the next step and what we're going to do. Alright, so here's a look at the cut points. The latex is basically starting to callus over a little bit right there, and that one as well. So yeah, it's not really gonna hurt the plant. It's gonna callus over. Then right here through the growing tips, they're gonna get more branches, even while farther back. So it's gonna be a nice bushier plant. And I like this better already, just overall from the effect. It's much more balanced, as I think the ones in the center were getting too tall and the side shoots were lagging behind. So this will kind of force it to be more of a bush-like plant, which is what I'm looking for in the end product. And even though this is completely unrelated, if you've ever grown a magnolia tree, or know the southern magnolia trees, these leaves remind me of those in a way. So I know they're 100% not related. It's not trying to make a comparison, but I just love that type of leaf, that type of plant. So I think that's why I like this plant so much, and why I want to propagate some more of them. So let's go ahead and take a look down here at these plants. So these are the 3 cuttings I have. I kind of dried off the edges. They're still leaking a little bit of that milky sap coming out. But anyways, now what you do, okay, so now this plant obviously has no roots. We're trying to get it to root. Okay, if we stick this plant completely as it is right into this growing medium, it's going to struggle to basically survive, because it's trying to keep these entire leaves alive, plus grow, plus survive, plus heal over this wound, and then it's going to have to try to put on roots, and just the whole thing's very stressful, and you're putting these little cuttings into shock. So what I need you to do is just got to be brave. Take the end of your cutting, nice flush cut. You need to take the bottom leaves off, okay? I know it seems brutal, but you got to trust me, it's going to be better for the plant in the long run. It's not trying to support an entire, leaf structure. You're reducing the amount of water needed, reducing the amount of stress on the plant. And I may come back and take another leaf off that one. Haven't decided yet to look at it. So remove those bottom leaves like that. Very important. So now this is a good size cutting. The 2 leaves has a growing tip, nothing below it. Nice flush even cut at a little bit of a diagonal. Okay, that's really important. Kind of keeps the it helps it to not rot. I forget the reason why, but it's important that you don't cut it completely flat. You do kind of leave a little angle to it. This little second cutting right here, that's going to be doing wonderful. And this right here, it's still kind of big. I may let this one go because it's a little bit stronger of a plant. Yeah, I'll let that one go for now. And if I see the plant struggling, I may remove the bottom leaf on that as well. So for those of you who want to see all this leaf matter right here, I mean, these leaves they're tough and rubbery. And, they're just pretty cool. I like this plant a lot, so that's why I want more of them. Okay, so next step, let's go and show you how to apply the growing hormone and then put them into the soil. All right, couldn't be simpler. You take your cutting. This is some rooting hormone, available at any big box store, online. I like to dip it in there really, really well. Make sure it's nice and coated down here so the wound is healed up. All those hormones are going to go inside. And then you take it into your container. And this is where I need to start kind of really see what's going on. As this plant is so big, these cuttings are going to be touching the sides. That's probably not for the best. I'm going to have to probably reduce these leaves in size as it turns out. So I was hoping I didn't have to do that, but I'll do that. Here are the leaves. Now it's going to seem more brutal, and these plants are, you're thinking of massacring these things, but they will in fact recover. Okay, if you can see here, I'm just going to go across these leaves here. Be sure not to get the center growing tip. You're just going to go across it. Just like that. Okay, cutting it off, which actually is probably better. I probably shouldn't have even tried to put this entire cutting in without first reducing the leaf size on this, which is going to remove a lot of the stress that the plant's undertaking in the process of trying to reestablish itself. A little bit more growing hormone as I kind of knocked it off the first time. And that just goes, make sure it goes down into the soil there. I'll show you one more time. This big leaf right here, we're just going to kind of go halfway across it. And here we go. And there's a little bit of the sap, you can kind of tell, comes out the center of the growing tip of that. So definitely this plant was very, very full of life and vigor. So hopefully these cuttings do take rather easily. And this one goes down into the growing medium. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and do this one last time. You've seen it, I don't want to explain it. Cut across. Okay, now these look brutal. It looks like I've really massacred these cuttings, and in a way I have, but this plant propagates quite easily, so I'm not overly worried. And there you go. So the cuttings you can see are down inside of this container. I'm going to wrap some plastic on top of this, water it in really well, mist it up a little bit so the leaves don't get completely dry. So just always have a nice misting bottle on hand at all times when I do work on my plants transplanting. And there you go. So you do the same. You can multiply your ficus plants, your rubber trees. A lot of plants respond super easy like this. I have some philodendrons I've done cuttings on. Other things this winter I've just focused on really just propagating a lot of plants, trying to expand without spending any money. It couldn't be easier. It's super fun. It's a trait that all good gardeners need to have, whether it be house plants or crops outside, fruit trees. Taking cuttings, making propagations like that will take your gardening and your skills to the next level, and it's really, really not that difficult once you kind of get the hang of it and understand what you need to do to be successful. So I hope I helped you guys today by learning how to do this. We'll check back here a little bit later, see how these cuttings are doing. We can talk about when to take them out of the container that you're propagating them in, and how to get them potted up into individual containers and continue the growing cycle along the way. So I do thank you guys for joining me, and until the next time here at the Hillside, you guys stay warm, have fun growing plants, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.